Hello and welcome to class. In this video, I'll be teaching you how to draft a trouser pattern. How to draft a trouser pattern. Just like we did in our measurements, I already taught you how to take accurate measurements for a trouser, alright? And those measurements that I've taken is what I'll be using to create this pattern. Okay, so I'll be drafting the front. This is pure pattern method, alright? This method is very accurate and it gives a very fitted trouser around the crotch area. It removes that bulge around the crotch area. So I will show you how it's done, how perfectly everything is calculated. Alright, so let's get into it. Now the first thing I'll be measuring, just like I always do in all my patterns, in all my pattern paper, I always take out the margins, right? Just half inch or 1 inch. Half is okay, just to avoid the paper having faults, alright? So that it won't affect our pattern, our block, our pattern itself. So I've already created the margin. Now the next thing I'll be doing is to get those measurements that I took. I'll be imputing it here on this pattern paper, just like I showed you how to take accurate measurements. But first of all, I'll be taking out 2 inches from the up margin. These 2 inches will give us room to draft our back pattern, because since it's a pattern method, I'll be drafting the front and back on this same pattern paper. Alright, so maybe when I want to cut, I can now transfer to fabric, but the both of them will be here. So I'll be taking out 2 inches. So I won't be starting from this line anymore. I'll now be starting on these 2 inches, as I'll be using the 2 inches as my waistline. I hope you get what I'm trying to explain here. Alright, so I will mark out the 2 inches. I'll take it out. Then I'll be using pencil. Then after, I'll highlight with my marker pen for you to see it well. But this pattern method is very simple and it fits accurately. Okay, so I've marked out the 2 inches. I'll be highlighting it. Whenever I'm done with pencil, I will highlight it with marker pen so that you will see it. So I've highlighted it with my marker pen. As you can see, it's now visible. Now the next thing I'll be taking is my vertical measurement. I'll be taking my vertical measurement, my hip line, my waist to knee, and all of that. Alright, so the first thing that you should note is, if you are making a trouser, a pattern, and you want to include your band height on the pattern, you can do it. You just start from 1, from this 0. But if you want to just add in your pattern after sewing the trouser, you just add your band. You can remove the band height from your pattern. Alright, let's say I want to make my band 1.5 and I want to just add it. I want to add it after I'm done cutting out my pattern. I will remove this 1.5. So every other measurement, I'll be starting from this 1.5 to take every other measurement, every other vertical measurement that I want to take. Alright, this is how it's done. But in this case, I'll be including my band height, so that after, I will show you how to cut it out perfectly. So from my waist to hip is 9. I have 9. So I'll mark out my 9. I'll mark it out. Then waist to knee, my crotch depth, just like I showed you in our measurements, how to take accurate crotch depth or body rise measurements. Alright, my value is 11. 11 is always perfect for me. I've tested it, it's what I normally use and it's accurate. it's good to measure it on your client so that you won't have any issue. Then another measurement I'll be taking is my waist to knee, which I have 23. So I'll mark out my 23. Then waist to ankle. My waist to ankle, I'll show you so that you see everything well. My waist to ankle, I have 39. And of course waist to floor, because if you want to make it to get to your floor length, you can as well do it. All right, so my waist to ankle is 39 and my waist to floor is 42. All right, and then I'll also be adding my folding allowance, but that's after I'm done with the pattern. I'll be adding it on my fabric. This is pure pattern, there is no allowance that I'll be adding here. All right, it's only if I want to sew it, transfer it on my fabric, that I'll be adding the necessary allowances. But for now, I'm not adding any allowance. Every allowance is gotten by calculation. Any allowance that I'm going to use here, which I will show you, is only allowance that is meant to be on this pattern, even before adding my seam allowance when I'm about to transfer on the fabric. All right, so I'll mark out these lines and then I'll show you. Now I'll be showing us how the first thing I'll do before inputting all those values. What we only did is just to measure. But before you draft your trouser pattern, there are some calculations that you need to do before you draft it. Now for the waist, my waist is 31, and that 31 I'll be adding 2 inches. These 2 inches is serving as ease. All right, these 2 inches is serving as my ease. So these 2 inches, 31 plus 2 is 33. Then I'll divide it by 4. Whatever it gives me is the value that I'll be using for my waist. Then the hip, my hip measurement, I have 38 plus 1. This one, there should be an ease allowance around the hip. All right, so this 38 plus 1, this 1 inch is the ease allowance around the hip. And of course divide by 4, because all the values from hip up is divided by 4. Then from my thighs down is divided by 2. All right, so that is how it's done. Then whatever value I have is what I'll be imputing on the hip line. Then my thigh is, of course, divide by plus 2 divide by 2. Like I told you, the thigh is divide by 2, right? But we'll be adding 2 inches ease allowance. What I'm adding is ease allowance, not seam allowance. All right, it's only when I'm transferring on fabric is when I will add my seam allowance. But what I'm adding here in this calculation is ease allowance, so that after I'm done making my trouser, it will be free and of course fitted, so I won't be having issues sitting down and the trouser having issues around the flap. So this is allowance will control and tackle that issue. All right, then the knee plus 2, for the ease allowance is also 2, then divide by 2. All right, divide by 2. Also ankle, my ankle plus 2, divide by 2. So these are the calculations, the values that we have gotten based on calculations. The other one is values that I got based on measurements. All right, but this one is very important, just like the other one. All right, so I will be inputting those values on my lines now. Now I've done my calculations. The waist is, After dividing and adding my ease allowance, I have 8 1/4. Then my hip, I have 9 1/2 1/4. That is 9.75. Then my tie, I have 13. The tie, I'll be dividing it by 2, not 4. Alright, from tie down is divided by 2. My knee, I have 9. Then my ankle, I have 6.5. Alright, then another calculation that I'll be getting from here, from our calculation, another value I'll be getting from our calculation is crotch extension. I'll show you how to impute it, but first let's calculate it. To calculate our crotch extension is hip, our exact hip, the hip that we got from the measurement, divide by 10. Alright, hip divide by 10 minus 2. My hip is 38. Divide by 10. I have 3.8. Alright, then minus 2 is 1.8. But I normally approximate it to 2. I'll show you how to impute all these values. But first, before you impute your values, you have to centralize your pattern. You get, it's called a grain line. You have to get your grain line. We normally start from the waist side, the waist area, but for some reasons I'll be starting on my crotch line to get the grain line. Alright, I'll be getting my grain line. Then the grain line is just the middle point. I have 23 here. The middle of this 23 of this pattern paper is just to centralize my pattern, so that even after cutting it on fabric, I won't be having the seam line around by the side coming to the front. Getting your grain line, removing tackles that issue. Alright, you won't be having your side seam line coming to the front if you are working. It tackles that issue. So I'll be marking it on my tie line, on my knee line, and of course the ankle, and then the floor line. I'll mark it and show you. So now I've marked out my grain line. Like I said, it's just the center of this pattern paper. You just centralize it, alright, so that it will accommodate all your measurements, all the width measurements. Now I'll be taking out my measurements proper. The first measurements that I'll be taking, which will guide us all through this pattern drafting, is my crotch extension plus my hip. Alright, the calculated hip, not the exact hip. The hip that we calculated with ease. Alright, so I have the value of 9 1/2 1/4. So I'll be adding 2 inches to it. I'll have 11 1/2 1/4. Now I'll be centralizing that 11 1/2 1/4 to get my line. Alright, I can't just start from anywhere and measure. I'll have to centralize it. Okay, so centralizing it, I will get the midpoint and then place it on this grain line and then mark. This is my 11 1/2 1/4 on this other side, and this is it on this side. Alright, I hope it's clear. So this is it. I'll also be highlighting it so that you will see it proper. So this is the first thing that I will do. Alright, then on my hip line, I'll be getting my hip measurements. Okay, I'll be getting my hip measurement, and I'll also centralize it on this line. Now on my hip line, I'll be marking out my hip. Alright, so I took this crotch extension plus my hip measurement. Crotch extension plus hip, I took it up to the waist so that everything will be centralized. Then on my hip line, I'll be marking out my hip. I'm assuming that this line is invincible unless I want to start from any part. I would like to start my pattern from here. I'll have to start my pattern from this side. Then this one will be invincible, right? Because this block now is my hip plus extension. plus crotch extension rather. So I'll mark it out. Let me impute my hip. My hip measurement is 9¼ If I want to start from this end, I will impute it here. If I want to start from this end, I will mark it here. So my hip is 9½ So I'll mark it. I'll mark my 9½ on my hip line, and then on my waistline. All right. On these two lines, I'll mark my 9½ Then the remaining is the crotch extension. I hope you are getting this. This block is my hip plus my crotch extension. All right. Then on my hip line, I'll be marking out that hip, remaining the crotch extension. I'll do the same on my waist, leaving behind the crotch extension. I won't be needing it on these both lines. I'll only need the crotch extension on my crotch line. All right. I hope it's clear now. I'll mark it out and show you. So I've marked my hip line. All right. I've marked out my hip line on my waistline, my hip line proper, and then the crotch line. And this is my crotch extension. Let me point it with my marker pen so that you see. I'll show you how to connect the line when the time comes. Okay, so on my waistline, I'll be imputing my waist measurement. I've already imputed my hip. You know, this hip is having the ease allowance, so there is some ease around there. Okay, then on my waistline, I'll be imputing my waist measurement. And before I do that, I'll also have to centralize it. And for me to centralize the waist part, I'll get the midpoint of my hip, of this block of hip. This 9½ I'll get the midpoint, and this is how it is. The midpoint is what I'll be using to impute my waist measurement. Okay, so that it will be centralized. Okay, this is the midpoint. Then on this line, I'll take my waist measurement. My waist measurement is 8¼ So centralizing my 8¼ getting the midpoint of my 8¼ I will have 4/1/8. All right. So this 4/1/8, I'll be putting it in the middle. If I want to add that, you add 1 inch that, all right, to the front. All right. But I don't normally like adding that to my front pattern. You can choose to add. It's very much okay. I'll add my 1 inch if I want to add, but in this case I want to ignore the that on the front pattern. So I'll just impute that my 8¼ measurements is centralized now. So I've imputed it. Then I'll connect my lines. This one I'll connect it to my hip, and this one I'll connect it to my hip side, this area. Can you see? And then this one, it's always advisable to use French curve to connect this part. Or let me use a straight line. I'll also blend it. I'll connect this one to here. Alright, so for this, from this part, I will now connect it to my crotch extension. That crotch extension, but for you can't just connect it. You have to get a perpendicular line, which is coming from, in a straight line, you come up by 1 inch from this crotch extension line. You come up from 1 inch. It's just like a 45-degree line, 5-degree angle. All right. So I'll use my pencil to connect it, to mark it first. Then that is where my curve will end. It will tackle that bulge around the crotch area. This will eliminate the bulge around here. All right. Can you see our pattern is coming out proper? All right. So at the knee part, I'll also mark out my knee measurements. Also remember to centralize everything. I always highlight on that centralize, so that you you will not have the issue of your trouser being by one side. You tackle it, this will tackle it. Then my knee, my knee is 21. My knee is a my knee measurement, just like we calculated, my knee measurement is 9 after our calculation. Then I'll put it in a center. I have 9, which is 4.5 on both sides. All right, 4.5 on this side and 4.5 on this side. Okay, so I'll be using my French curve to connect. This is how I'll do it with my French curve to connect. Then this part I'll equally connect this line. Can you see everything is on the center, on the midpoint? Can you see our trouser is coming out nice? Let me use my marker pen to highlight it. Okay, once I'm done, I'll highlight it. Okay, then on my ankle line, I'll impute my ankle measurement, which is 6.5. So getting my midpoint of 6.5, I have 3.25, then 6.5. All right, so I'll use my straight ruler to connect to my knee line. So I'll connect it and then show you. I'll connect it, then I'll also do the same. The value I have on my ankle is what I'll also impute on my floor length line. All right, it's the same value. I'll connect it now and show you everything with my when it's visible. As you can see, I've marked it out up to my floor length. The value I got on my ankle is what I impute on my floor length. Alright, this is a pencil trouser, but if I want a straight trouser, the one running from my knee straight to the ankle, of course I'll just mark it in a straight line. Alright, the value I have on my knee is what I'll be marking out here. Alright, if I also want a straight trouser running from my lap down to knee in a straight line, in that case it won't be tight around the knee and it won't be tight around the floor area. I'll just run it straight from my lap down to the floor, like so. I'll just run it straight. Then this area I'll also run it straight down. It's a straight trouser. But if I want a boot cut, the one that is flay around the knee, from the knee it extends in a flay part, I can just take the flay around here, then connect it in a boot cut manner, in a funnel manner, right, to the knee, to the floor. That is it. Then for this upper area, for the upper part, this is I will have to impute my, if we had added that, I'll impute the that. Alright, but I did not add that. Okay, but if I want to add it, I can still add my that for the sake of the tutorial, but I did not add that. Alright, so this part, at the front trouser, you normally come down by half inch to avoid it being too down. The down part of a trouser is always down. Alright, it's not on the same height with the back, so I'll come down by half inch from my center front. I'll come down by half and then use my curved ruler and connect. I can use a straight ruler and connect like so. Alright, this is it. Okay, can you see? I came down by half inch because it's not meant to be a straight line. But if it's a jumpsuit, it has its own alteration. Okay, so this is the front pattern of trouser. In this trouser, it gives you a perfect fit. But if you notice, there is one thing I would like you to take note of. This crotch, if I measure my lap, it's not up to my measurement, my main lap measurement. I will have to take it to the back. Alright, my lap is 24, and adding my ease allowance, I have, from the calculation, my lap is 13. I have 13, but it's not up to, it's shortened by 1 inch. So I'll have to add it to the back so that it won't affect my pattern, alright, or my fitting. This is very accurate. If you do this, you will love this method of pattern drafting for trouser, alright. And I hope you to practice and ask me a question if you have. Then in the next video, I'll be showing you how to alter the back. Alright, see you in the next class. So welcome back. In this video, I'll be showing you how to alter the back pattern. Alright, it's very simple. The main area is the front, so the back is very simple. I'll show you how to easily do that now. Then on the waistline, you come in by on the center waist. Alright, the crotch area of the waist, you come in by 1 inch. I will come in by 1 inch. Okay, then I will extend it upwards by 1 inch also. I will extend it by 1 inch. Let me just mark it out for you. Okay, can you see? I came in by 1, then extended it upwards by 1. So I will now be marking out my waistline on this in a slanted form for it to run through this waistline like so. And I'll also add my dart allowance. My waist is 8 1/4, then adding my dart allowance is 9 1/4. I normally add 1 inch dart allowance. I'll take it half for the dart leg. Alright, then 9 1/4, I'll mark it here. As you can see, it's extending outside my pattern. It does not have any issue. You just connect it back to the crotch line. Alright, I'll just connect here to the crotch line, but in a situation whereby it's not too much, I can just blend it towards the hip. But if it's like so, I'll just blend it towards my lap area. Alright, it does not affect anything. So I will connect it in a slanted form like this. Can you see? In a slanted form. Then blend it to my lap. I'll blend it towards my lap. Alright, make sure you blend it well. It does not affect anything. This is the back. This pattern is for the back. I would have loved to use a different marker pen so that it will be very clear for us. Let me use a different marker pen. I would have done it initially, but it still does not change anything since you understood what I'm trying to explain here. Alright, it's becoming green and red now. I'm only using this marker pen so that it will be the same color with the front, so that it can just differentiate the front and the back. I'll just blend here. Alright, I've done that now. Okay, so this part now, okay, from my crotch line, I will then measure my lap. You know, we are having shortage on the front, shortage of 1 inch on the front lap. So I'll impute that shortage on the back now, but I'll get my exact lap on the back. My lap is 13. I have 13 after I've added my ease. I have 13. I'll mark it 13. Alright, then 13 plus the one which we are having as shortage on the front, I'll add it back. Please remember to add it back. Okay, if it's 2 inches, it does not mean anything. Just add it back. Then I'll come down by ½ inch from this crotch line. I'll come down by ½ inch. So this is where I'll be connecting my back crotch line towards this end. I'll use this curved ruler to do that now. So I'll first of all connect this one like so. I'm just looking for a way to blend it normally. Can you see? I've blended it. Can you see how it went? I hope you can see it. So if I measure back my hip, for instance, the back hip, as you can see, it went out of, it's giving me, the back hip is giving me 10 now instead of 9 and 9.5 It's just an addition of ½ inch. It does not mean anything. Just leave it like that. Okay, so I'll now connect this crotch, the back crotch, to my knee. All right, I'll connect the back crotch to my knee. This one is already done. We are not doing anything again around this area. It's already done. It's set. So I'll connect this one back to my knee like so. This method of pattern is very simple and is accurate once you do use it. As you can see, the back is set. This is the end of the back pattern. I came down by 1. Remember all I did? I came down by half here, went in by 1, extended it upwards by 1 here, then took my waist. Okay, let me also get my dart. Let me impute my dart. I'll be imputing it in a slanted form on the back, just a line parallel to this one. I'll get the midpoint first, the midpoint of 9.25. I just want to impute my dart. Like I told you, for the front, it's optional. If you want it, you can put it. If you don't want, just leave it. All right, leave it. I'll be coming down by 5.5 for the back. So just like I told you, in a slanted form, just a line parallel to this one is how it should be. So I'll be imputing my dart leg half on both sides. It should give me back that one that I added. Can you see? So this pattern method is very simple and easy to understand, and it gives a better fit. All right, once you use it, it gives a better fitting. Can you see? Our pattern is now ready. So like I told you, for this down area, I hope you can see. Let me show you well. It's looking so beautiful and neat and accurately done. No mistake or something like that. It fits perfectly. Just use your tracing wheel to trace one after the other. You trace out the front and then the back. All right, this is our front line, not this one, just like I did, so that it doesn't confuse you. Okay, so this is it. Right, so for instance, on the down area, let's say I wanted a straight trouser. Okay, let me see if I can use another different marker to highlight it to show you what I mean. For instance, if I wanted a straight trouser around from my lap going towards the floor length, I'll just mark it straight like this. From the lap, I'll mark it straight. Soulmate is very easy. The main thing is knowing your pattern, the main pattern. Know the main pattern and how to draft it accurately. Then every other thing is easy. You can just alter it to whatever design that you want. The main thing is drafting the main pattern accurately. So I don't really have to do this. I hope you can understand what I'm trying to explain. If you are able to get the main trouser pattern accurately, you can alter it to whatever design of trouser that you want, be it 8 pieces. Yes, soulmate, you can get 8 pieces from this just by using your slash and spread method on this grain line. It's very easy. All right. Okay, so this is it. We have come to the end of this class, and I'll be cutting it out and on a fabric, and then show you how it's been done. I'll draft it. I will trace it out on a different pattern sheet, then show you how to transfer it and add all your necessary allowances, and then transfer on fabric, then show you how to join it. All right, thank you for watching.